Quick programming note, you'll be sure to want to watch Bret Baier tonight as he sits down with James Comey, a one-on-one interview. That interview on Special Report at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on Fox News Channel.
He says he's going to ask all the questions that haven't been asked yet, so we're going to have to stay tuned.
That is going to be must-see TV.
All right. That's going to do it for us. Thanks for joining us.
Outnumbered starts right now.
Fox News alert for you now. We are awaiting a vote in the full Senate on the nomination of Mike Pompeo to become the next Secretary of State. That vote should come in the next hour, and he is expected to be confirmed. Over the last several days, more Democrats have announced their support for Mr. Pompeo. Earlier this week, it was uncertain whether he'd receive the majority support of the Foreign Relations Committee, but after some last-minute switching, he was approved. We are watching for the vote. We're going to bring you updates as they happen. Fox News alert, new reaction from President Trump to White House physician Ronny Jackson withdrawing as the president's nominee for VA secretary. This after Democrats revealed a string of unverified new allegations against him. President Trump is standing by Dr. Jackson, calling the claims false and blasting Democrats, accusing them of obstruction. This is Outnumbered. I'm Melissa Francis, and here today, Town Hall editor and Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich. From Fox Business, Dagan McDowell, former deputy spokesperson for the State Department and Fox News analyst Marie Harf, and joining us on the couch, former Trump campaign manager and co-author of Let Trump Be Trump, Corey Lewandowski, and he is outnumbered. How do you feel? You good? You ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah?
He's ready
one
for
lucky
anything.
guy.
You're surrounded there.
I love that.
I punched him in the arm walking in here, so
True.
he knows
Just to get me ready.
Yes,
He's warmed up.
He knows where he stands. when
Okay,
he
perfect.
sits.
Let's get to it. Dr. Ronny Jackson withdrawing from consideration as VA secretary, but staying on as White House physician. He decided to pull out of the running after Democrat senators released new details of allegations against him. They included claims that he recklessly prescribed drugs, was drunk on duty, and crashed a government car. Dr. Jackson releasing this statement, quote, "Unfortunately, because of how Washington works these days, these false allegations have become a distraction for this president, and the important issue we must be addressing how we give the best care to our nation's heroes." President Trump was asked about Jackson's withdrawal this morning, and he blamed Democrats for keeping good people out of important jobs.
The Democrats are obstructionists. It's horrible what they're doing. They're not approving people. They're taking them out to the maximum 30 hours. That's a lot of time. And these are all false accusations that were made. These are false. They're trying to destroy a man. By the way, I did say welcome to Washington, welcome to the swamp, welcome to the world of politics.
The ranking Democrat on the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, John Tester, was one of Dr. Jackson's most vocal critics, and he was asked to respond to the president. Watch.
I'm focused on the next Secretary of the VA, and we need somebody who's going to serve our veterans and make sure we doesn't privatize the VA and make sure that they can run that organization and move it forward for the best benefit to the veterans of this country.
There you go. Corey, I'll start with you. What do you think?
I think this is the worst that Washington has to offer. You've now maligned an individual who served our nation in uniform, both overseas in the military conflict and here in the White House, not just under President Trump, but under President Obama and under President George W. Bush as well. And, you know, you can ask, and what the president asked today on Fox and Friends was, who is truly qualified to run a giant organization of the VA? And if you look internally at the qualifications of Dr. Jackson, a man who, by all accounts, was a professional in what he did, understands the medicine side of this, has served in the military, and knows, because he has served with so many people who are now using the VA system, what those needs are. I don't know if we're going to find a better qualified person.
Yeah. But it's not all accounts, obviously, because there are people that are accusing him of these misdeeds and of drinking on the job.
But nobody on the record. And look, one of the things he's been accused of is missing a telephone call. Missing a telephone call he's been accused of. If that's a crime and stops somebody from being a secretary in this country, we've got a serious problem. It's an unfounded, salacious allegation by individuals who haven't come forward, who haven't put their name on. In this country, we're still allowed to, address our accusers. And that's not what's happened here. We've got individuals who are on background, not giving their name, making accusations that are very discouraging. And moreover, this is an individual who President Obama gave the highest recommendations for and the highest praise for. Where were the critics at that time as he served for 2 presidents in those high capacities?
One of the critics is John Tester from Montana, obviously. This is what the president had to say about him this morning.
I watched what John Tester of Montana, a state that I won by like over 20 points, really, they love me and I love them. And I want to tell you that John Tester, I think this is going to cause him a lot of problems in his state.
Marie, what do you think?
Well, John Tester was working very closely with the Republican chair of the VA committee, and they were confronted with a situation here where over 24 currently serving members of the military came to the committee and said, we have these very serious concerns. Corey's right, they haven't been proven, but the senators have an obligation not to overlook them in this process. And I think that, the fact that Republican support for Ronny Jackson had cratered on the Hill, this was not just Democrats. There are a lot of reports that Republicans were not going to push forward on this nomination. If Ronny Jackson did some of these things, he shouldn't be VA secretary. I'm not sure if he did or not, but a responsible senator has to look into them.
I think that's the key word, if.
Right.
For the nomination of this doctor who has worked admirably for 3 presidents to be railroaded over accusations that have not been proven. We don't have a single person on the record talking about exactly what happened. I was listening to Jonathan Swan from Axios yesterday, and he was saying that he heard these allegations over the weekend, but he did not report them because he could not prove if they were true. So my question is, Ronny Jackson, I would argue, is one of the most trusted people in Washington, D.C. He is in charge of the president's health, and that is a very serious responsibility. And if these allegations are true, and again, I say if because we have no evidence that they are.
But if they are.
We aren't going to get a hearing to have him defend himself in public now that he's been smeared across the country. Yeah. If these allegations are true, there are serious questions about why nobody said anything, because he is the most trusted person, the closest person to the president. So why is it that? And one more point. This is political for a lot of reasons, but let's not forget that David Shulkin was a holdover from Barack Obama, and there absolutely is a political axe to grind here when it comes to who they think should lead the VA, because there are consequences for bad behavior in the VA, and privatization is on the table, and a lot of people who are defending the federal government and the way the VA operates don't want that to happen.
You're looking forward to
This is a message from the Democrats to the Trump administration. Anybody that you nominate, if you think about taking a job in this administration, we will wreck your life. We will wreck your life with very specific allegations from unnamed sources. The fact that the level of detail in these allegations, where he didn't get to face his accusers. This was just spread around like garbage in the wind. It is a message to this administration. And you know what? I think that they don't want good people in this administration.
The president addressed just that. Listen.
Any idea who you might nominate next?
I do, actually, but I better not give it. Maybe we'll do it on my next call. I do. I think we're going to have somebody great.
All right.
Somebody that's more, look, the admiral is not a politician, which is what I liked.
Is your nominee somebody in politics right now?
Somebody with political capability.
But he won't say for that point that Dagan said, that it does feel like whoever he puts up just gets smeared.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily fair. What were these senators supposed to do when 24 military members came to them with these allegations? I agree that those names of those people aren't out. They said they weren't releasing them because they were worried about retribution. We cannot overlook serious allegations. And
wouldn't you track it down before you spread it out?
Well, but the thing is, if Ronny Jackson wanted to defend himself, he could have stayed in and had a confirmation hearing where he addressed it. And I think that it's unfair. Look, we have to take these seriously, because we can't just say that any allegation made is political when they involve something so serious. But Dagan, I think you have a guess at who in the next VA secretary might be.
One idea, and I've heard some that people shooting down this idea, but what about nominating Senator Joe Manchin? I dare a Democrat to vote against him. He's got a tough race ahead of him in November. Whether he would take the job or not, remains to be seen. Yeah. But I dare the Democrats to go after Senator Manchin the way that they went after Ronnie Jackson. And by the way, part of the problem with the VA, and this is what I find, I think every American who wants our veterans treated with dignity and with the care that they deserve, having served our country, the problem is there are vast entrenched interests at the veterans, within Veterans Affairs, within the veteran system. But it's got a $200 billion annual budget. Again, there are a lot of special interests that want to hang on to that power, and they don't want anybody to shake it up.
Well, because it's not just Admiral Jackson. Don't forget, this is a man who's gone through 3 FBI background checks, who's gone through a Senate hearing as it related to getting his first star, a man who's up for his second star. None of these concerns were raised, and I would assume that as President Trump came in, Admiral Jackson would have been required to go through another background check to stay on board in a senior capacity inside the White House. None of these issues were raised, and all of a sudden he comes up for a VA confirmation hearing, and all of a sudden we've got 24 individuals who are making accusations which are unfounded. And look what they did to Director Pompeo, the director of the CIA, a man who graduated first in his class at Annapolis, top of his class at Harvard Law School. And guess what? They malign him and call into question his ability to serve. And it was only because of the president's sheer will to get his own Secretary of State confirmed that we hope that confirmation hearing is going to take place today. Good people don't want to serve in the government because of things like this happening. And look, Dr. Jackson had a historic and distinguished career in the military, and now what he's going to be remembered for are these salacious accusations which are unproven.
Well, and I think it's important to point out that the Navy assigns the doctor to the White House. Admiral Jackson will stay as the White House doctor, and now that these allegations are out there, I am sure the Navy will launch an investigation and look into whether they are true, which gives him an opportunity again to clear his name. But at this point, it doesn't really, or not. But at this point, it doesn't really matter because it's been out there. And the idea that Senator Tester would go and you say we have to address these allegations, sure, but he ran to the cameras as soon as he could and as fast as he could to spread this garbage around.
What's at work here is something that the Wall Street Journal editorial page pointed out. As much as people call President Trump a fascist, he did this power center, nobody can control it. In fact, it's the permanent bureaucracy, the special interest groups in the media, day after day, that are grinding down the executive authority in this country, and this is part of that, and it's disgusting.
Well, I mean, it's great to investigate claims as they're out there for sure, but you don't spread them and smear him before you've investigated them and found a conclusion. That's the part that is not understandable. All right, a federal judge will weigh whether to appoint a special watchdog to sift through documents seized in FBI raids targeting President Trump's longtime attorney, Michael Cohen. Mr. Cohen's lawyer wants to shield anything that might compromise attorney-client privilege. We are going to bring you the latest developments from the courtroom. Plus, new concerns that former FBI Director James Comey may have shared his memos with more people than initially thought, who sources say is another likely recipient, and what this means for the investigation into Comey's conduct.
This Fox News alert, a live look at U.S. District Court in New York City. Just a short time ago, President Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, walking into court. A federal judge set to hear arguments related to the FBI raids on Cohen's home and office. Mr. Cohen's legal team says many of those documents are protected by attorney